Bob Schock is a Oakland personal injury lawyer that I turn to give me advice and counsel regarding what's happening in and around us from his standpoint. I'm going to turn to him again to find out this time what's happening in the economy with respect to the personal injury lawyer. In other words, are there more lawsuits or less? Without further ado, here's Bob Schock. Bob, how are you?
Excellent.
Bob, we're in the middle of a giant recession that's been going on for, I think, 5 quarters now. How has this affected the job of the personal injury lawyer? Are there more lawsuits, less, for more money? What's happening?
I think, there's less lawsuits. There's more people going to lawyers seeking representation. When you have an economy like this, more and more people are going to the attorneys to see if by chance there's some cause of action that they can go against someone else to recover money. I think for the most part the lawyers are being selective in the cases because they all cost money to handle, and if it's not a good case, they're going to lose money if they try and handle it. Now, secondarily, the statistics are that lawsuit filings for personal injury type of cases are down, in spite of what you hear from the insurance company. As a matter of fact, I think the recent statistics came out of the insurance industry. I don't know which group, but 80% of their cases settle for under $5,000, 90% settle for under $15,000, and only 1% of their cases settle for above $100,000.
Just 1%?
1%, less than 1%. So contrary to what you are led to believe by the Chamber of Commerce's and so forth, there's very little huge cases, and even those huge cases are generally reduced by the courts after the jury verdicts, and they are generally tremendous injuries.
You know, something occurred to me. I drive and have noticed that people will just leave their doors wide open, and it seemed to happen more often over the last 2 months than I've ever seen before, and I wondered if they thought that they could collect money if I hit the door. Would that be the case?
That one I haven't heard of. I don't think so. I think the major emphasis of people going to attorneys right now in the personal injury type of field are job related. Because of the massive cutback in jobs, even though people may for legitimate reason be laid off, they're feeling that there must be some reason they were laid off.
Wrongful termination.
Yes, so we're into the wrongful termination, or maybe they feel that they really were being harassed and gotten rid of because they objected to harassment, many of those things. But I don't see a lot of additional lawsuits being filed yet, although the defense bar is bracing themselves for an influx of those cases.
You said that someone might be terminated because they objected to harassment. Can you clarify?
Yeah, many people are complaining to their employers about being harassed by other people, by supervisors, and so forth. Nothing happens, and maybe the supervisor is told not to do it, but keeps on doing it. But after a while, someone has to make a decision. Do we want this person complaining? Do we want to keep our supervisor? If we think we have a good supervisor or the other people are good employees, we figure out a way to get rid of that person who complains. So it's also an excellent time, should one want to do it, to get rid of anyone we disagree with or don't like because they complain about conditions on the job.
So you mean if you're a whistleblower, the whistleblower should make sure that their record is clean before they whistleblow?
That's right.
Fascinating.
That's right. That's and obviously that is something you can sue on, but you better be crystal clean when you're doing it, or else you're going to run into a problem.
The old saying, people in glass houses should never throw stones.
Correct.
What, from your standpoint, let's take the flip side, because you always talked about how a person can use your services, which is because you're one of the best personal injury attorneys in the country. But how can a company protect itself from lawsuits in a recession, particularly with respect to worker-related issues?
Okay, I think this is both ways, but with respect to the company, they generally have large firms, although those firms have been splitting up and going down the drain, but there's still a number of large firms that specialize in employment litigation that are set up to go into the company and basically tell everyone exactly how they have to act, what has to be done, how you can lay somebody off, how you can avoid being charged with discrimination, harassment, or whistleblowing, or whatever. So they're still out there. They're expensive, though, which means the company has to have money. It has to be pretty fluid. So if they are not, then it does cause a problem.
If you are, for example, a person who's here on H-1 visa status, and there's a problem where you are employed by a firm, but you're not being paid by them, and then arguably perhaps their practices toward you are both personally and professionally abusive, even if you're here on H-1 status, do you still have a legal recourse?
Sure. Yeah, it's more complicated because of that, but there's still recourse. It's just you have to be very careful in how you do it. That's when you have to see an attorney to make sure that you dot the I's and cross the T's in everything that you do.
How is it more complicated, though? Curious.
It's just it's not a straight employee-employer relationship. A standard one, anyway.
Because contractual, it has a lot of
Yes.
gray areas, it sounds like.
Grayer than a standard employment relationship.
Fascinating, fascinating. And you had some other statistics I think you wanted to share, right?
That was a while ago. It's easy to forget these things, but, no, I think those were the major statistics that are very interesting.
Yeah, I think
to me
so.
at least.
Yeah, and birth repeating, you basically were saying that only 1% over 100,000. That's
correct.
it.
That's the insurance industry's own statistics.
But you yourself have enjoyed wins very recently in that area, right?
Absolutely. I interview maybe 300 cases individually a year, and we probably take 10 to 20.
How do you decide which one to take?
Basically, if it's a medical malpractice, which is one of my specialties, we have to have an expert first. If we have an expert that clearly says there is malpractice and damage, then it's something worth pursuing. And then we finance and push the case along. If there's no expert out there, then it's not worth handling the case. So that basically it's trying to identify whether there is malpractice, and you have an expert before you ever get involved in the case. And if it's not malpractice, you can hopefully put some closure to the people that feel they've been aggrieved by explaining to them why there is no provable malpractice.
And finally, how can people get a hold of you?
Either give me a call, either email at Robert Schock at legalpros.org or rschock at pacbell.net, or call 510-839-7722.
Thanks, Bob. Once again, great conversation.
Okay, glad to be here.